Thank you for coming this afternoon to this artist
Are you
talk.
practicing?
Got to.
Rehearsal.
We're trying to record this for our archives as well, so it's like we're still working with the whole like mic system and how to present it. So like again, thank you for coming this afternoon to the artist talk for the Android stream of electric sheep. It's the paradox of choice in time of anxiety. With us today we have three of the participating artists, Tang Kwok Hin from Hong Kong, Michael Lee from Singapore and Berlin, Xin from China, and we're very thankful for their participation and as well for their presence today. So basically, I know they come from very different tangents, so it's like in terms of how do we talk about anxiety in such context, because like if we look at anxiety as a philosophical context, it's sort of like the idea of dread in the everyday, and it's not like it's like the kind when he spoke about it as the lack of the lack, or more summarized as like the freedom to throw yourself off the cliff rather than the fear of falling off the cliff. So I mean, like, I'm more for the open discussion about notions of anxiety, and I know that a lot of the works other than Kwok Hin's lower legs were works that were done prior to this exhibition itself. So it's like I'm opening up to my fellow collaborators because I don't really see an exhibition as a matter of power structure, but more of collaboration. And between us, we also had a lot of discussions as well. So maybe you'll want to talk about like how do you see anxiety as being defined, or what it means to you?
Actually, I maybe I say something about my background. Actually, I live in Canteen. Canteen is actually a very far place from here. Maybe most of you haven't been to Canteen, right? I live in such a war village, and I have my ancestors are situated in Hong Kong maybe 500 years ago. So that I have so-called in Cantonese as Yuan Juman. It's kind of quite a long history of my background.
Native.
Yeah, native. Yeah. So I have a place for working. My studio is actually at home. So I think that I'm very lucky that to have such space in Hong Kong, and then as an artist, it's very important to as a full-time artist. So that I think that I don't have much anxiety actually when
About rent.
yeah about rent, about my life. Actually, I'm quite free to work on my stuff. So when Qinyi just invite me for the exhibition, I'm just thinking of what kind of anxiety I have. So initially something come across my mind is something about maybe I will use the word curiosity first to approach anxiety, because in my work I normally try just to find out some norm or the value of so-called the general people, what they are thinking, and how this world, how this society is constructed. So actually the new project Lower Lakes, actually I deal with Qinyi about nearly 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So we are just keep trying to find the point which we are on the same sheet, something like that. So first of all, I think of curiosity, and then I just think of the work of Lower Lakes, because one of the point to construct this society is about law. And about law, then I think of road signs, because when you go to the street, when you see some road signs, they're normally very clear message to you, and it means that there are no choice for human beings. So that is the point that I make the installation. So I just turn the whole thing to abstraction, and then to try to investigate the hidden message of the so-called general people anxiety. Maybe I can talk more later about that. How about you?
So, I think my memory of my early childhood includes myself imagining that I would die of hypertension, because I used to be a very nervous child with my heart pumping hard and fast for a long time. So I thought that was the way that I would die. And I had no way to find out why that is so. But as I grew older, these episodes become not so often. And but I also learned more things that made me anxious, maybe. Right. I mean, sometimes I over psychoanalyze myself. For example, I might see my tendency to take on different roles in the art scene, like making, writing, curating, publishing, as a form of anxiety. Anxiety towards self-oblivion, that to do a few things was a symptom that I'm anxious that I might be forgotten. That's basically what I'm saying. Even down to discussing about this work, I was quite shocked that Qinyi would want an old piece of mine. So this piece that you see downstairs, Skype, a worker's guide, actually was first made in 2005. And I restaged it a few times in 2007. But thereafter, my work kind of shifted to being free of, totally void of the human figure, whether my own or someone else's, and having architectural and urban spaces and structures as the subject matter. So I tried to pull a fast one a few times. I said, can you not show this work? Can you show the video versions, so that I don't have to do like 4 days and nights of installations here, which I did. Or can I show my latest research? Like, you know, I have something cool happening in Berlin. No. I suppose after looking at what's set up, I kind of get what Qinyi is saying. Sometimes you may be remembered for some things that you don't want to be remembered for. Or it could be that there are relevance of this sort of trajectory of my work for contemporary context. Like, it could well be that in 2005 I was 7 years ahead of time. So I just kind of went with the flow. Yeah, that's an intro.
主要介绍什么？
Yeah， 对，就是主要讲起这个作品的这个过程，还有就是对于好像交换的这种想法。
交流的想法。So my work is always animation, but sometime also I will do some project in the a residence program in the empty space. I will just design the exhibition and everything just for this exhibition, and after that brush off everything. So everything is brush off, and this work is my studio work. It's not project work, and I have a team and work every day like a small company. But my film is not commercial animation film. I think it's different from the others' animation work, because I never learning animation, and I learning printing in the academy. So I developed the special animation film myself, and yeah, and I teach my members how to do it. So always my work is each frame is handwork, hand drawing and hand cut downstairs. So, and about this film is my first time to try to do the woodcut animation film, and the script be finished about 2002, and one day I read it again. So I think it's interesting enough because my script about the life, the China now. So I think okay, that's enough. So I should do it, and so I finished it at 2010, 2011. Yeah. So yeah, and about the film, you can have a look downstairs. Okay.
We're also like there's this interesting pattern that I'm also trying to pick up as well, like as part of this exhibition is like in one way is that we derive the title from a science fiction novel where science fiction as a genre has a way of using the future to talk about the present. Like the same way how post-colonial archives speak of the present through the past. So I'm also looking like in terms of your processes. Like Michael, your work was in 2005 that when we first started out. Swinchen, your first idea for the script started in 2002. And in terms from a more historical sociological point of view, that was also like what people sometimes classify as the start of the age of terror, like as to like how rhetorics were framed in terms of fear, in terms of paranoia. And I was just wondering if that would be in any way like having to do with like affecting any of your development, because at that point of time we were talking like the increase in airport security, the way that the rule of law is applied, walking around, you know. Technically, would that have anything to do with your practice? Like the development, yeah.
Sure.
Should be.
I think for myself, this piece has at least 3 layers. The first is, I think what is apparent in the outfit and what's happening, as well as captured in the title. It's a kind of manual for office workers to take some time off at work. Not that we need to do that. I think all of us are quite expert in doing that. So skiving, yeah, finding ways to. But so I was tackling this question of how an individual can continue to realize and pursue his fullest potential in an organized setting, which is known for requiring a lot of subjection of individual rights, freedom towards organizational goals. And we hear so much from friends and from reading about very strong corporate cultures like those in Japan, for example. The second thing that I was trying to tackle is the history of self-portraiture, actually, because I would see this work as being semi-autobiographical, where I think, if we broadly understand the function of self-portraiture in like 3 time phases, where in the classical sense, if you were to paint yourself, it is most, like Leonardo might paint himself, it is to practice so that you can create the most divine image of God or demigods in service of a higher being. And then the modernist portraitists would say, okay, express yourself. But in the contemporary understanding is that portraiture could be a way of being other than who you are. So I'm kind of like taking on this contemporary understanding that I could, well, basically I don't dress like this or like that every day, but as a chance for me to transform, self-transform. And then finally, I've been looking at a lot of installation art and studying the history of it. And one of the things that I thought I could maybe contribute a little bit would be to kind of flip one of the definitive features of installation art around, namely the fact that whatever you are putting on site is site-specific, whether specific to the physical tectonics of the space or to the history and culture of the neighborhood or the area or the building. So instead of being site-specific, I was thinking of a work which is quite parasitic. So parasitism would be quite an opposite of site-specificity, because this work, I was trying to imagine a work which seems specific to any site that is given. So I think that's a nice coincidence with the name of this space as well as Parasite, which I didn't intend. It wasn't intended for Parasite art space, but it seems to work okay here.
那么就是谈起就是2000年，就是因为你跟 Michael 的艺术品就是好像从05年开始，然后你的发展过程就是从02年开始，所以谈起这个部分，就是2000年之后，就是以一些历史家来，社会历史家是会谈起是一个比较 Age of Terror， 就是比较恐慌的时代，所以就想问。
Age of Terror 什么意思？
恐怖。因为当时就是9/11那些事情，然后就开始在世界上就会发生了比较多的这个strict terrorism， 以这些 rhetorics 就是论文政治论文就是文章论文都是谈起这些不同的恐慌，所以想问一下，就是有没有影响到你们的这个发展？就是刚好就是这个年代。
这个我可以用中文回答。
Can you use Mandarin?
Then you translate.
Okay.
But it's okay.
I'm not very good, but
或
like
者可以
I.
帮我翻译一下，因为这个问题我用英文回答，我的英文就不够了。
I got it.
OK 吗？
我尽可能吧。
可以，当然会有很大的影响。
There is a huge resounding effect.
对，因为我的作品始终是会跟就是现实的一面镜子。
So his work is actually a reflection of the contemporary landscape or the contemporary world that exists.
对，所以现实里面，在中国的现实是无法逃脱政治。
Even when you talk about China itself, it's impossible to walk away, to move away from the political rhetorics of the embedded within the contemporary world.
对，因为也不是我要刻意的去要表现政治。
And it was not something that he implicitly said that he would be walking towards talking in a political manner.
对，因为你甚至在任何的一个时候，政治会影响到你。
So definitely, at any one point of time, politics, whether instead of politics in the way of governance or in the way of lifestyle or manipulation would always affect your everyday.
对，然后我的作品里面就是我个人的体验，还有一个是社会集体的经验。
through his work is about his own personal experience and as well as like his observation of their society
然后交织在一起。
combined together.
对，然后当然你在生活里面，你同样可以发现一些很有戏剧化的，然后充满乐趣的情节。
请重复，我前面听不到。
就是充满戏剧化和乐趣的情节。
So it's like some through his work there's also like certain optimistic and dramatic, the dramatic aspects of like the life.
No, actually, in reality, you can find
In
a lot
reality, yes.
of drama and humor, drama and absurdity.
Absurdity, yes.
然后因为我们生活在那个年代，就是中国的年轻人一般不太会关心政治，但是这些东西其实在我的记忆里面是非常深刻的。
So he's saying that the time that he is living in, the younger generations do not care too much about politics, but in his memory it's still like he cannot deny his memories of such politics as well.
对，因为你如果想刻意的在生活当中选择一部分的内容忘记，那么中国就会变成这样的一个国家。但是如果你要想把所有的东西全部继承下来，那么它就可能会变成另外一个国家。
So he's saying that if you implicitly or explicitly consciously force yourself to forget about a certain segment of the everyday life, there is a chance that China would be molded into a different frame. And whereas like if one is to inhabit the whole memory of everything, then China can be seen through a different lens. How old are you? 你多大?
How old?
Yeah. 多大?
32.
32. 32.
30.
32.
32.
OK. 1978、79。
80.
1980年。
80。
那对不起，那你住在什么地方住？
住北京。
北京。
北京。
然后就是说，当你关心这些东西的时候，并不是说你要去表现政治，因为我觉得对于任何的一个社会来讲，一个生活来讲，它政治和历史始终是一个很大的、巨大的坐标系统。坐标。坐标。X Y。
Axis. So he's saying that one does not have to be implicitly political in intent, but however when one considers like dominant narratives such as history and politics together, it becomes a fuller axis as to how one sees the world.
对，所以说你在这个里面，你有了这两个坐标，你才能更好的寻找到你自己。
So through this axis, he finds it as a better way of finding himself.
对，因为你如果这两个坐标不确定，你的存在是始终具有焦虑的。
If you do not acknowledge or do not have the axis of like acknowledging, marking yourself a position within such rhetorics, then you would inevitably cause yourself certain anxiety.
对，所以我的作品就是说，不停地在对现实的怀疑中产生。
So that's why his work is always not hindering, but like existing within the realms of skepticism or speculation. Okay.
记得香港2002年有SARS 吗？
对啊。
还有金融危机啊，还是
那是08年。
那个什么
08年。
对。
So like in 02 there was like the SARS incidents as well, and 02, 03 SARS incidents in Hong Kong as well.
Yeah. Actually, I think the most powerful thing to me is about the state of living. Actually,
the standard of living?
the state of living there, the situation of living. Because I just mentioned that I live in canteen. It's kind of, maybe I just spend 5 minutes, then I can go into nature. So it's very close to nature, and there are many birds around my living place. So that I maybe rephrase what I've said. I have much anxiety before, but I'm too tired of that maybe.
Before what? Before when?
Before maybe.
Before you met Michael?
maybe I have much anxiety and anger to this society. I have many things that I disagree, or I just want to change it, but we just lack power to do anything, and even just like the administrator now. And so that I maybe I can talk something about the video. And I just try to do research from Google first, to type shop in Google. And then there are a book called Reminiscent of the Eastern Capital just come up in the search results. So that I just looked into the books. Actually that book is written in Song Dynasty, and it's written by Mang Yunlo. It's a very old book. It mentioned that in the books there are 100 different names of shops, and so that I just shocked that there are quite a variety in our history, long history ago. But contradictory in canteen there are, I cannot imagine that there are 7-Eleven just opposite my living place. It cannot imagine 10 years ago. So that and then in this year, the 7-Eleven is just opposite my my living place, and there's many chain stores just keep appear in this town. So that I just think that the way of living, or the maybe just Qinyi mentioned in the curatorial statement that it seems that we have many choices, but actually it's framed in certain quite direct, specific way. How this society want us to do something that is sound very well, very good, as a good guy or as a good person, something like that. So I do that video project. Actually, it's firstly in Tang. It's a exhibition about how to tackle the problem of we lost our place of variety of shops, or variety of different kind of way of living. So that I just do that project. Firstly, I just take some photos of some clothes stores, some very small clothes shops in Yomade and in Yunnan, and then I just take another layer is about video of some open chain stores in Hong Kong, very renowned chain stores, and then I just overlay to this, and then that's the work first finished. At first one is about Yunnan district. So finally, that there are 18 channels of videos, because Hong Kong is actually very small compared to China. Actually, it's not China, so compared to mainland. I mean, compared to Taipei, actually, I think Hong Kong is very small, and MTR is too convenient to go anywhere in Hong Kong. So and Hong Kong is actually divided into 18 districts. So I guess I'm able to go around the whole town by just take the MTR, and then when I go to certain district like Yunnan, like Yaojimok district, and I just alight and then go around to see, observe the whole town, and to find some stores and shops. And now as a traveler, I pretend I'm a traveler from Hong Kong, or come to from somewhere, and then I just try to discover something that I think that the passerby or the something walk on the streets, they normally is meaningless to people who walk on the street, because they normally need to go from one point to another point, and the journey or the walking is meaningless to us. So that, but I actually love walking a lot, because last year I just go to Venice, and I just try to spend 2 or 3 days to walk over the whole town in Venice, and he's able to do so. So we just lack of time of think about ourselves, because when you, it's quite normal that when you are on an empty auto, then everyone is using their finger to do something very busy, and when we go travel, we normally search from Google. We travel 3 times on Google already before we just go to Venice or somewhere. So I just think that we are too convenient, or everything is too efficient, and yeah, maybe my previous anxieties from that. But I just start thinking that I'm too tired of having so much anxiety or anger. So
So that's a resistance.
maybe, actually I don't speak before my MFA. I speak very less, but I have many things in my mind. But when I after my MFA, and because I need to be a part-time teacher before, so I just maybe I express more. Then my anger is less, or anxiety is less, and so that's my starting point to the cityscape, or the way why we are so repetitive in our way of life, or what we see, what we can gain.
Kwok Hin raises a very interesting point. Like, he's kind of illustrates like why he feels it's critical to have his work here and now, like to talk about it. And I know you mentioned sort of the reluctance to bring back the old work again, and like how it sort of becomes how certain things are remembered. But also, like, Michael and Sunshin, I'd like to kind of ask you, like, in more general sense, on the premise of why you would think it's critical to show the work here and now, other than the curatorial statement, but like, you know, that's not the point.
Why here?
Like the critical point of choosing to exhibit. Where does your reluctance stem from, and where did you give in? And for Sunshin, more importantly, why do you think you would have shown the work here right now as well? Like, have you given that some thought?
Why?
Yeah.
I show this work here.
Yeah.
Because you selected.
No, I selected it, but like also like the question about the importance, like, do you think it would have been like much more, you know, the criticality of actually showing your work? Like, would you ever think about the premise about where you exhibit your work?
Okay. 中文。
那么就是好像展出艺术品的时候，就是有些艺术家会想起好像，为何会展览这些艺术品的重要性，就是在这个地区或者这个历史这个时段里面所展出。就是好像也是由你的这个台北双年展的这些经验也可以
Sometimes for the artist you cannot decide such thing, because the curator will select the work. You cannot decide. But for me, I have many residence program, and I will make a connecting, and my country and this country. I will think a lot about this. So, for example, in Japan, I will choose the materials, ink on rice paper, and the story about the story I will choose one which Japanese can go inside easier, and in American I will choose oil or acrylic, and in Europe maybe I just get some trash from the street. So everywhere is different, and the story also different. Because, for example, I travel to Holland, and they just choose the new president. So, okay, give me idea. and I will do the script about this, and I will ask why. Yeah. So and of course I will connect it with China. So make like a bridge, and this bridge is my script, and I will do the animation work, and also the space, and I will take care of the space history, and the city and country culture. So everything I will thinking. In fact, I just learning about that, and I decide what I should do. But normally, like the exhibition like here, I cannot decide.
But
so
you have a right to decline. You have the right to decline
the client
the invitation. 拒绝。
拒绝。
很难拒绝你的，你那么甜。
You cannot.
Okay. But also like.
I think for me, I find it almost impossible to answer the question like, why do this now? Which is to say, you know, are you convinced as an artist that what you're showing now is relevant in time and space, relevant to Hong Kong and relevant to Hong Kong now? I can't answer that because I often imagine that my work is kind of like a little bit off time, a bit out of time, which is to say sometimes if it hits the right note, it's probably something quite timeless. But well, of course, I mean, there is an urgency for me to relook at this work, because one of the reasons that I stopped doing this was that this work is like so laborious. I used to be hand cutting every single piece, and when the installation gets bigger, I will have handful of assistants and spend 2 months just cutting and getting sore fingers. And then I never sold the work, and I've never found a way to make it collectible. I've never seen anybody being able to find a way until Parasite came in. The team comprising Qinyi and Jim's, Jim's, who is like kind of like the production manager of this show. He managed to locate a shop that is willing to do this for me. Previously, I went to 10 shops. I said, please help me cut this. They say, you go back and then do AI file, outline every figure. I had like 1,800. Outline every figure and send it to me. I will cut for you. And I was like, oh, I think it's faster if I just hand cut everything. But this time around, it's all done by a shop. And so in my regard, I think it's timely in this sense that I revisit this work in a stage of my career where I am quite anxious about finding that balance between kind of like critical insight and kind of collectability. Yeah.
Because he wanted to show the latest work or something like that, and then maybe Michael just prepared some counter argument to you, and then you deny it. So it means that work is quite important for this exhibition, right?
Oh, she dropped this word that I couldn't like counter any further. She said, "This is a seminal work of your portfolio, of your career." Oh, seminal. I like the word seminal.
Has it made you want to revisit the work?
Sorry?
Revisit the ideas that originally instigated that work? Do you think doing the show, bringing it up again?
Yeah,
Well, it's gonna lead
I
to
think
something
thematically this addresses one aspect of the idea of anxiety, you know, vanity. I mean, part of why I did this work was a kind of personal vanity, you know. I mean, I use the word transformation, but it was also a means for me to kind of test the ground in terms of bringing life and art together. And going to the gym was part of the pre-production process. I call it sculpture, sculpturing the body. So there is an anxiety aspect, and I'm sure all three of us, we have different ways of dealing with anxiety,
Yeah. But also like seemingly because like then there is another layer that I kind of add on to it. Like we spoke about it briefly about the paradox of choice, the ideology of choice itself, which is like perpetuated by contemporary consumerism and then now into the private sphere. So like there is this notion of like the paradox of choice where like one is presented with so much choice, then they become more anxious not because of what they have, but what they will lose upon making the choice, the options, like from coloring the walls, like if you color it black, you can never change it back to white without wasting a few days, and things like that. But there was also one of the things that was interesting because like this is kind of a belated reflection upon the works that you exhibited this time, which was all very laborious, like from the woodcut prints where your assistants were like doing it, and then there was an additional layer of how using the woodcut into digital animation, to Jim's helping you with their cutout, and when we were all standing down there, like on the last night before the opening, where Trevor and I were sitting down there putting the rhinestones together, and before that your father, your mother, and your sister, your girlfriend was working on it. And I was just wondering, like, there was this very long, like, where every single placement or like every single cut meant something, like the weight of the position was there as well. So what does it mean? Like, how does it come?
I suppose like the different issues could be boiled down to the anxiety of the modern world.
Or postmodern. Be careful with modern or postmodern.
I would say the modern world, which includes the contemporary context, where in issues ranging from trying to move away from craft to concept in the production of a work, to like what Hin was mentioning, how he was dealing with trying to add on to his usual introverted or quiet persona to also have a more extroverted aspect, and well, like the way where I want my work to look like white at first before the figurative element is visible. I think all this have to do with how, I mean, the history of modernism, where there is this conscious awareness that we have progressed to a stage where we have choices. We can go for labor intensive, or we can go for something lighter and smarter. And I think we're all dealing with kind of aesthetic, material, and even personality choices all the time.
One of the, maybe I still have some anxiety. One of this, I believe that we are losing some very primitive ability. It means that primitive ability means the instinct of, maybe I'm from different generation.
Different.
My mindset, I mean,
different from us. He's the youngest.
No, I mean that.
No, you are the youngest.
No, wait. No, he's young.
Okay.
That's the next big difference between you.
I
And
get.
just 1 year younger than Sushi.
Okay. I guess I need to admit that I'm quite different from this generation, the mindset. I mean,
The Gen Y or the I mean, like, if we're,
I compare with the same age
Okay.
people. I need to admit that the generation nowadays is quite about efficiency. So that I need to admit that maybe primitive ability of human beings is meaningless. Or need to so-called improve or change or transform to some way to fit the world needs. So that this is the most anxiety of me now at the moment. Because I like walking, I like observing, I like doing something very slow. Mostly in my work I spend a lot of time on the very time consuming part, and I love doing that. And because during the process, it's kind of to prove your existence, or your existence of when you're doing something very time consuming, and then you can go in some situation or condition, and I believe that is very true to me. And yeah, maybe it is one of the biggest part of my anxiety.
就是想问一下，因为你们三位的这些艺术品都有这个比较手工化的这种雕塑，所以其中也是因为在手工画这种 handcraft 就是有一种很 like 在选择上就是一错就不能再错了的那种重量。
一错不能再错是什么意思？
每个决定一定要是对的，会不会有这种情况？
对，最好不对。
不对就丢掉吗？
不对，你的作品就是你没有那么多钱啊，浪费钱了。
可是其中，因为我们也是曾经讲过，就是好像这个教育就是在这个画展里面讲述的就是 paradoxically， 那就是好像当代的社会就是有太多选择，那么才会使到观众的这种教育。所以在如此就是看着你们的这个发展形成、艺术形成，那么就想问一下，你们所挑选的这种practice discipline， 起初好像他做的就是那种集锦，这一位就是霍黑也是做的也是手工类的，所以你那边也是选择了木雕，而且我知道你的木雕也是有那种70年代、50年代的那种相连，所以想问一下，如何你对现在有怎么样的这种想法？
我用中文回答。OK 吗？
也可以。
我觉得今天的人和古代的人没有区别。
为何？He believes that like there's not much difference between the contemporary people who exist in the contemporary world and the historical world.
因为我不相信我不能控制的东西。
He doesn't believe in something that he cannot control.
对，比如说我为什么选择用手工的工作，我不用电脑？
So, like, why his choice of like handcraft, let's say in terms of the woodcuts, as opposed to a digital process?
因为如果我要用电脑的话，我必须会自己做电脑，我会编程，我会控制电脑这个工序里面的任何一个节点，而不是电脑在控制我。
So, like, in terms of the choices that if he was using digital process, he would command every bit of it rather having the computer instruct him in ways of doing it.
对，因为当我们在使用电脑的时候，你被迫的要接受电脑的语言系统，而不是电脑接受你的语言系统。
Because like when one uses the digital process, one is faced with having to adapt to the vernacular of like the digital programming rather than the other way around, controlling the process.
对，所以说你今天的人，你可能有汽车，你可能用电话，你可能也看着电视机，那只能说你生活的环境不一样，但是从你本身的角度来讲，你与一个古代的人是一样的，你做的东西不会比他多， 你会的，你比如说他能造一个什么样的东西，他每天要干什么，你做的事情基本跟他是一样的。
So even if we were to talk about like life in the contemporary world where one has like technology, like cars, like mobile phones, like computers, it doesn't mean a differentiation from, I guess, the Neolithic times, the primitive times, because like you're still doing the same thing all over again.
对，所以说，比如说现代的电脑这样的东西，我可能会，当我需要的时候我会学。
So like now, like when he sees a need to use modern technology like the computer, he will learn it eventually.
对，但是我用完之后就扔掉，
But he
我就忘记了。
这是一个
就是比如说软件，电脑的软件，
一定。
对我就会忘记，我就不用了。
So he forces himself to forget like once he's done with the program, the software that helps him achieve his ends, he would just forget, like he would just explicitly make himself forget how to use such program or like the instructions, so on.
对，但是我每天会写书法。
And every day but rather every day he would do calligraphy.
所以我更相信精神上的力量，我不相信外在的形式，什么现代形式、全球化这些东西，我觉得这些东西都是一点用处没有。
精神和
对，就是全球化，就 international。
因为我听不到你前面这一段。
啊，就是我更相信精神上的追求。
So he's more into the will and the strength, like self-will and spirit.
对，所以我觉得就是，尤其是做艺术家来讲，你生活在今天这样的环境来说，你应该更逍遥一些，而不要被这些东西所累。比如说，我如果会一个3D 的软件，我就一定要用3D 来做作品，忘掉它。你还会什么？就把所有的东西你都忘掉了，你还能干什么？这个时候，你可能就找到真正的艺术。
So he believes that a contemporary artist or an artist who works with contemporary art should be a bit more adaptable to like various mediums itself. Like he believes that one shouldn't be burdened by bigger rhetorics like globalization, internationalization, and so forth. So he's also talking about like as an artist, like when you work with three-dimensional programming, it is a tool to be utilized in the broader sense that once it is done, it should not be, once you're done with it, it should be done, but also at the same time that one should not rely too much on it.
我没说那么久，你怎么翻译这么多？然后我觉得就是说，当然了，我的意思并不是说我们要拒绝这些东西。
He means that he doesn't think that we should take an explicit stand against anti-technology.
对，而是说要认清这种关系。
But we should be very cognizant of such relationship with modern technology itself.
对，当你这种关系清楚了之后，那你就可以用所有的东西，但是不会被他们所负累。
Once you're clear of such power structures within the use of modern technology, then you would be able to situate yourself at a firmer position and be able to stand firm.
对，所以我特别欣赏那种特别原初状态的作品，就是它的这个现代的技术，它并不是用的特别多，但是这个作品做的非常棒。
So he has a certain admiration towards a certain roughness in some of the contemporary artwork. 例如谁？
啊？
例如谁？
那很多，比如说现在画画的这些画家，很多画画的画家，再比如说有一些做装置的艺术家。
So more towards like people who artists who work with paintings and as well as installation artists who work with installation.
对，比如说徐冰的《天书地书》，我觉得这是件好作品，他用的是最原始的办法。
Such as Xu Bing's book From the Sky, where he, I'm not their installation where it was a mix of Chinese and English calligraphy.
对，或者是蔡国强，他也是那个什么。
And Chai Guoqiang, who also derives his inspiration from like very primitive material like gunpowder and so on.
对，就是这些，我觉得这两个比较典型。
So these are the two artists that he would admire and think more in terms of how one can situate themselves to technology and that.
I have a question is when you say you would like to control computer as a tool, you would like to control it instead of being controlled by the computer. But what's the fundamental difference from a computer and other, let's say, traditional tools like a paintbrush? You have to know the nature of it. I think you are also infected by those tools. What's the fundamental difference of a computer or other tools?
他想问的就是，例如一个人对于电脑，你不是讲就是要控制一个电脑，不是让一个电脑来控制你。相反的来讲，就是以一个电脑比喻好像一个毛笔或者怎么样，这个比较原始的这种工具有什么分别？就是以你的这个理论控制一个电脑，你控制一个毛笔。
控制一个电脑，控制一个毛笔。比如说电脑，它里面它是中间它会有一个语言系统，隔在中间，你和电脑之间是需要一个语言系统在中间的。
Because like when you work with digital technology, or in this case, let's use the analogy of a computer, is that you are communicating through a specific language. There is a language barrier between you and the tool itself.
其实我知道他的问题的那个推动力，就是说，照你的这个说法的话，我们不应该被机械或者是工具控制，这样的话，应该把所有的工具放在一边，就是刀或者笔或者是paintbrush。 然后真的做，就是用身体来做东西。
可以。
这样。
这个我是同意的，是完全。
I absolutely agree with your point, but somehow artists have to be. Anyone should know his tool, and I think they interact. The tool and the artist interact each other. Somehow you're changing by the tool. When you try another tool, you will learn another way to do your project. Do you agree?
所以他讲的他就是不大明白为什么你对于这种电子邮件就是有这么铁实的这个反抗。
我的反抗是一个态度上的反抗，但实际上我用的非常多，但我是态度上的反抗。
It's more like for him the resistance about using digital technology is more from his attitude. And even though he does use a lot of digital technology itself.
对，比如说电脑，我可以就是说，比如说软件，我可以用很多，我会很多软件，但是我做动画的时候，甚至字幕我都是要手写，我不会打字，我不会用打字这个办法来做我的字幕，我用手写。
So like in terms, like even though because he works with animation itself, there's a lot of digital technology involved in it. But at the point of using text, he would insist on writing his own characters rather than having a digital word processor.
对，或者是我自己重新设计一个字体，我不用现成的。
Or he creates his own fonts.
Can I say is you like the nature of handwriting instead of digital font, but it's not about the tool itself. It's about what kind of nature you've chosen. I mean, what kind of presentation you have chosen.
Sorry, can you rephrase that for me again?
So, 你具体去做一个example， 就是you like the nature of handwriting or your way to write instead of digital fonts. So it's not about the tool is controlling you.
我知道有一个话来回答你的问题。也就是说，面对作品的时候，我要创造一个世界，完全这个世界是由我创造的。
明白我的意思吗？
对， 然后呢，这个期间呢，如果有这个工具的话，那么我也希望这个工具是我能够自己创造的一个工具，是这个意思。那么也就是说，它是一个完整的一个体系，因为你不要就是说，比如说这个工具的这一个部分，它实际上能够成为你世界体系当中的一个部分，它会给你很多的启发，甚至决定你接下来的这个工作的方向。其实这个是很重要的。但当比如说有的时候你做一件作品，当然我说的意思是，那个比如说用电脑，当然你有些人他是完全能够进去，他自己电脑非常的精通，所有的程序没有问题。那么电脑这个时候对于他来讲，就像一支毛笔一样，因为它可以改变电脑的这个程序各方面的东西，他是一个电脑的专家，那么他可以用这个东西直接的创造一个东西。但是我觉得对于一个艺术家来讲，那么你所应该做的其实就是你用最原初的这种心态去创造你的一个世界。当然你的选择是多方向的，但是你必须这样去做，而不是说比如说我这里可以打出一个字，那么我就有现成的，我就不会自己再去创造了。那这样的话是很可怕的。那也不用画画了，比如说它有一个什么图形，你剪下来，你一贴就可以了，自己不需要做。你可以做所有的事情，按照现在的社会的状态来讲，你可以找到所有的东西，你根本不需要做。对，甚至你都不需要画画，你拿那个图章一扣，可以扣很多。
只是用不用 ready-made 的 material 是另外一个题目了。
其实就是应该就是问他说，你对 ready-made 啊、appropriation 啊、collage 啊这些做法，就是用现成的材料来做作品。
用现成的
这种就是美术史里面就是有这方面的东西。
对，
你的看法是怎么样？
我觉得我的看法，比如说按照这个杜尚的这个做法来讲，那我觉得是没有问题的。我觉得是没有问题的。
为何没有问题？
因为杜尚他这个作品，他这一，
He has no issues with your
比如说他有一件很典型的作品，这个小便池，这个是很有名的作品。为什么这个作品它可以就是说直接放进一个美术馆？因为杜尚靠他的自己对艺术的理解所产生的精神能量，已经把这个小便池的属性改变了。这个强大，它完全可以压过小便池的属性，而不是说我们放一个小便池在那里，不是随便一个人放在那里，你都可以成为杜尚。你拿一个小便池去美术馆就不可以，但杜尚就可以。
So he's talking about an incident where Duchamp actually took the collection to the museum itself. Duchamp, the Armand incident.
而且还有
The fountain, Duchamp's fountain. So he was talking about like how like Duchamp managed to overcome the physicality of the object itself to enable it to inhabit inside the museum itself rather than allow the object to override the other way around.
而且
What is Qinyi and what is Bugui?
Sorry?
What is Qinyi and what is Bugui? He said it, he mentioned in the last part.
Sorry?
What is possible and what is impossible?
No, it's more like the ready-made.
Yeah, he talked about ready-made.
But he talked about it if like it's also as an analogy about how one incorporates the ready-made nowadays in artistic process, like production process itself.
Yeah.
So he's taking it as an idea that 他就是讲你上半段就是讲出一些可能不可能的事情。
可能不可能的事情。
我记不起你好像是没有讲到那个。
可能不可能。
我觉得。
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have any more questions?
Not yet.
No.
可能我们可以问你，我们都有，就是我们的作品都跟焦虑、社会的问题啊，自己人生问题，还有怎样 城市的一些焦虑。
嗯
你这个展览可不可以说是也是跟你对焦虑这个话题有关？
Oh no. Absolutely not self-referential. Well, no, not really. I think it's interesting to look at anxiety as a team. 讲中文还是讲英文？
忘记了。英文吧。
I think you may want to rephrase your question again.
So the artists have different relationships to anxiety
Yes.
from a kind of reflection of social, political situations,
Yeah.
personal anxiety, responses to urban norms and rules through signages. I'm interested to know your relationship with anxiety. Or what are you anxious about as a curator?
I think like if you look at like a curator's practice, it's always based on urgency, and urgency in some ways deals with the here and now, but also like the idea that the question about like what does it mean to have an exhibition? Why do you need to do an exhibition now? And like in terms of anxiety, I don't think that is much, but more like a societal condition that I've been reading up upon. Like there's this book called The Geopolitics of Emotion, which is actually a mapping of the world through emotions post 9/11, but it comes from an American point of view. So it talks about how fear, how happiness, and how hope has been used to map geopolitics and what is the future is in there. And for me, this kind of cartography always interests me to a certain sense. Then at the same time, like because of my background in Southeast Asian studies and my studies in particularly the history of the region, I was always interested in how, not being political, but how politics are being used, like the power structures within like such rhetorics are being read or shown in everyday, and what it means, how does it work in terms of governance, and that for me is more of a scientific, more pathological scientific observation rather than something that I'm directly anxious about. I mean, like I pretty much also like agree with Walter Benjamin with the whole hyper acceleration of time, how it shortens time, how we deal with it. So that's also another research that I'm interested in as well. Does that answer the question? So I think like maybe we can open to the floor for a very short Q&A, or maybe not.
It's already been open.
Yeah, it's been open, like it's been quite casual. So I mean, like if there's nothing, then I'd like to thank you all for coming again.